We're expecting to see some fast starters here. Jerry Owen from Fishguard and Goodwick Jemima Rowing Club is a rapid starter. So we'll see him get off quite quickly. He's right alongside Adrian Miramon Quiroga, the world champion of last year, here representing Ireland and Wicklow Rowing Club. And then we've got Gregor Hall, Frankie Montfort, Chris Back, who's the gold medalist in the men's double earlier with Corey Rogers, my co-commentator of the last race. And then we've got the big man, Keelan Mannix, for Ireland's Ross Carberry Rowing Club. He was 4th last year, so he'll be looking to get onto the podium this time round. So this sprint for that first turning point is going to be absolutely crucial. Here we go then. We're underway with the A final of the men's solo. White flags up this time, so we've got a good clean start in this A final. We'll see who gets off to the fastest start as they get themselves underway. Bohdan Hadchenko of the Central Sports Club of the Army of Ukraine at the top of the field there, but it's in the center lanes. Pushing out for the early lead. Quiroga already the early leader. That's Spanish champion here racing for Wicklow Rowing Club, Ireland, in his iconic yellow boat, world champion from last year. So a lot of high expectation on him. And then he's already moved out to the front of the field. Keelan Mannix going with him in the blue boat representing Ross Carberry Rowing Club. So that's the 1-2 through the first 150 metres. There's Charles Cousins for Great Britain alongside Gozategui Urbieta of Club Remo Torrevieja. So a fast start for Cousins as well. You can see these boats absolutely in a deadline, with the exception of, at the front, Miramon Quiroga of Ireland Wicklow Rowing Club. USA 1, Chris Back at the bottom of the picture there, trying to push ahead to take second place, but just the boat speed of Quiroga, just so fast. That's going to be the one to watch. He capsized last year, no, 2 years ago in Oeiras, managed to right his boat and still come in for a medal. Really, really impressive athlete. It was as though he just did a barrel roll in his boat, straight back in it and kept rowing. Chris Back now trying to solidify that second place. They're going to put a lot of energy into this first 1,250 metres to the first turning point. Crucial that they don't tangle themselves up. Charles Cousin in the red boat in the middle of the picture there. Looks like he's getting locked in alongside the Club Remo Torrevieja athlete, Gozategui Urbieta. And then on the other side of him, we've got the Finnish athlete in the Club Nautique Amposta, Fernandez Toma. But this is our leader, Adrian Miramon Quiroga, racing for Wicklow Rowing Club, just holding out ahead of Chris Back, now in second place. Keelan Mannix trading places for second with Chris Back. So as they start to think about converging onto that first turning point, it's all about this first straight. Get a clean round there, and then we'll see them spread back out again on the long leg down to turning point 3 in the distance, where they'll hopefully be using that lighthouse to better effect for navigation. We heard from some of the athletes earlier they don't want to be turning over their shoulder too frequently. I'm not sure I'd be able to do it any less than every single stroke personally, because when they get it wrong with that navigation, look at these big rolling waves coming in now. Much bigger as we've gotten into the afternoon. The wind hasn't picked up too much, so not as much chop or spikiness in the waves that we're seeing out there. So that means that it's relatively straightforward for these athletes to get the boat speed up. And as long as they use those rolling waves, they can get a little bit of a boost and surf along towards turning point 3. There's Jolnau Karinen in the middle of the picture for Finland 1, representing the Finnish coastal rowers. Field starting to string out slightly, but it is also very wide on the racing line. Representing Ireland in the centre there, we had not just Wicklow Rowing Club from Ross Carberry, we've got Keelan Mannix, and of course Ring Rowing Club's Noel Creedon. We saw him racing earlier with McCarthy. Now he's here in the solo. Pretty recognisable suit, the dark blue suit with the yellow stripe across it. That's Keelan Mannix in the blue boat, trapped in the middle between Chris Back and over on the far side, Italy 2, where we've got Lo Console. Chris Back taking the wider route around the outside, here representing Next Level Rowing. But Miramon Quiroga, he's just so quick. I mean, the way he got off that beach and the first few strokes in, He's practiced that entry to perfection. Charles Cousins trying to get back into the action in the middle there. He's caught up in the middle of quite a few boats, these big rollers now. You can just see that Miramon Quiroga's boat, a really steady pace for him. Very little wash off the stern. Just so smooth through the water. He's got an amazing feel for moving his Kangwa through the water. So many different boat manufacturers. Everybody choosing the hull shape that they believe is right for their style of rowing. Look how little wash comes off Miramon Quiroga's blades as he finishes the stroke. Just so smooth and so clean. Chris Back rowing around him now. Immensely strong athlete, but he's already raced today. So that'll come back to bite him later in the second half of the course, but he's got the depth in his endurance training to fight it out of the front of the field here and contest the medals. If anybody's going to give Miramon Quiroga some pause for thought, it's Chris Back. Now coming around this turning point, Chris starting to pinch in around. He'll want to make sure he doesn't get tangled up with any of these scullers just astern of him. So he might take it slightly wider. And as we were chatting with Corey earlier, the big rolling waves move in from the sea, which starts to push their bows round, and they find themselves too close to the shoreline. So those that are a little bit braver to point a little bit further out to sea along this long 1,500-meter back leg tend to do that a little bit better when it comes to their arrival at turning point 3. Now passing turning point 2, it's just 80 meters beyond TP1, so they have a nice rounded edge to this first corner, helps minimize the clashing. Good clean course from Miramon Quiroga. He's now back out in front, that tighter route through the turning points, meaning he pulls out ahead of Chris Back once more. So now for the long leg, 1,500 meters. An immense distance they've got to cover, and this is where the mental game really starts to put in the challenge. Chris Back trying to get overlap again with Miramon Quiroga at the front of the field as we see Keelan Mannix, Charles Cousins, Gabriel Loconsole locking it out for the bronze medal position in that tightly condensed pack. See how they get on here. Chris having a quick look for navigation's sake. He's up there at 32 strokes a minute. Miramon Quiroga just holding on to the lead by half a length or so. He's at 36. You can see how much shorter he's rowing compared to Chris. Adrian just over half slide. That's why he's up there at 36, really putting the emphasis into the back end of each stroke, looking to keep pushing the boat forward. High rating, not big, long, strength-based strokes, but a higher cadence of low strength, but just ticking it over to keep the boat speed up. This is how he'll practice back home in Spain and when he's on camps in Wicklow. Still just holding half a length. I think, though, the tricky thing's going to be there are a lot of corners coming up, and that's where these two will either win ground or lose ground in the closing stages of the race. We often see both of these two athletes racing it out in the beach sprint finals, where Adrian Miramon Quiroga last weekend won the men's solo, so they are no slouchers and they are deeply experienced in handling those tight corners through the chicane of the beach sprint 500-meter race, and of course the hairpin bend around the turning point at the far end of that course for those that have seen it. So these guys really do know how to handle these boats around the tight corners. Charles Cousins then locking in third place. He started to pull away from that tightly condensed pack. This long leg will seem never ending for these athletes. They've done 1,250 meters to the first turning point, 80 to turning point 2, and then now 1,540 meters to get to turning point 3 before they start the winding course back into shore. Not as spread out in the field as they were in some of the previous races, but at least some of the athletes like Chris have been out there already today and raced the 6K course, so he'll already be familiar with sighting markers and what he's going to use to navigate his way around the 6K. Miramon Quiroga's boat speed, though, just slightly superior as he starts to pull away in open, clear water on Chris Back. Charles Cousins then in third, fourth place. We find just moving up through Keelan Mannix is Loconsole for Italy. Keelan Mannix, therefore, in 4th place. That's where he finished last year, so he'll want to make an improvement on that. There we go, nearly 10 minutes in. They'll be approaching that 3rd turning point over by the harbour wall. You can see a couple of hundred meters left before that turning point in the distance. Miramon Quiroga solidifying his lead ahead of Chris Back for the USA in silver medal position now, and Charles Cousins in that bronze medal position. If I had to try and overtake anybody in the course of a men's solo race, I would not want to be having to try and overtake Adrian Miramon Quiroga. Such a skilled coastal rower. And to boot, he's been leveraging the experience of the Irish with his training in Wicklow Rowing Club. Absolutely dominating performance here. As long as he can keep out of trouble around these turning points, get the navigation right, it'll be all the work for Chris Back to do to close in. A bit of a push here from Chris. He'll be really feeling the pain of having raced earlier in the men's double with Corey Rogers, where they took the gold just ahead of Sweden by 1.5 seconds over a 6K course. That's what it came down to, the sprint up the beach, where Corey Rogers nipped in just ahead of Sweden. Not much separating them out at this stage. Italy too, currently in 4th place. That's where we got the Canocchieri Cenobio boat with Gabriele Loconsole. Big push here from Chris Back, trying to move up through Miramon Quiroga. Slightly tighter line from Quiroga, I think, towards this turning point. We can see the bows there of Charles Cousins for the Mumbles Amateur Rowing Club. And then this is that trailing pack. They'll be looking to hunt down those medals. Everybody does leave a World Rowing Championships with a ranking. So whilst they may not be in contention for these medals at the front of the field, they will nonetheless leave Barletta with a ranking. Top 18 in the world at worst. Beautiful drone shots here, all pulled together by World Rowing Productions. An amazing set of videos we've got. We can see everything going on all the way around our 6K course. Miramon Quiroga's responded here to Chris Back. Doesn't look like it, but he has pulled back out into the lead. So we'll see how they now handle the corners. So now we're coming into a series of tightening bends where we've got the first section coming around this turning point. They'll then have a 450-meter section to turning point 4, then 400 meters to turning point 5, and they're all roughly the same, between 450 and 500-meter turning points before the chicane on the way back into the beach. So they'll be pleased that those 2 long legs are done. Now they'll be counting down these turning points, wishing them finished. You can see from this camera angle, it's so hard to spot the turning point in the distance, but Miramon Quiroga, like an arrow, directly heading towards it, and he's opened up several lengths of clear water going around that corner. Just such a smooth run on his boat here. There's a couple of big rollers coming in, diagonal to his direction of travel, but an athlete like him with his coastal experience, he'll be able to capitalize on those and almost surf the diagonal down the wave. That's why having a slightly higher rating with a few chippy strokes just allows him to catch a wave, ease off, chippy strokes, catch a wave, ease off. And that's the skill that we like to see here. But the forearms will be absolutely killing them by this point, especially Chris Back, because he's done the race already earlier on today. Charles Cousins now trying to close in for the silver medal. Chris looking still very strong out there, as you can see these big rolling waves moving across them. A big wide arc from the trailing crews. That's because the waves will be pushing them out towards the harbour wall. The athletes who can compensate for that best will steer the straightest line And that's what we're seeing from Miramon Quiroga at this stage. .30 strokes a minute for Miramon Quiroga. Beautiful overhead shot here with his Spanish oar coloring, whilst representing Wicklow Rowing Club of Ireland. It's so cool to see so many of these athletes training with different nations. That's how you get better. You've got to train with the best to be the best. We see that in so many other sports, and that's what I love about the beach and coastal variant of rowing, is that groups getting together like Spain, USA, and New Zealand did in Donneratico just a couple of weeks ago. They were able to put in a few training camps, and that meant that they just learned from each other and continued to up the level of their coastal rowing game. But Adrian Miramon Quiroga, a stunning start for him here. I mean, he's nearly 3/4 of the way around this 6K course. And I have the pleasure now of being joined in the commentary box by Aubrey Oldham. Now, Aubrey, oh dear, just as I'm about to introduce you, there's a bit of a lock-up here. Not what we want to see. That's Spain 1. Marc Franque Montfort getting a bit locked up there. We'll see whether that's made much of an impact on his lead. But Aubrey, welcome to the commentary box. You were down there helping with some boat handling.
Yes, I was. Thank you for having me back on. It feels like I'm spending more time in here than on the water this year.
Well, we love learning from you, mate. It's great to be able to hear from what it's like down there in the water. So who were you boat handling for, and how did that pan out?
For this race, I was helping with Joel, who's the Finnish athlete. He seems to be in the pack right now, which is great. And yeah, he just had asked if I could do this. I was helping him during the beach sprints that final weather day, because his team had to head back to Finland mostly, so he was left stranded. So we had Charles Cousins from Great Britain and myself. We were able to step in and give him the shove to help him out. So just helping him out again today.
We love that. I was just saying to the audience that, you know, the chipping in, helping each other out, training together, that's what makes this such a fun vibe here, but also builds people's standards in the sport. Now, we were due to have you racing this morning in the mixed double with Sarah. Sadly, we missed out on your last race, and that's because Sarah is... Sarah had her race earlier on this morning, right?
Yes, yeah. Sarah was in the A final of the women's solo, so she had a good race, a challenging race. She was in a pack through most of the race, as you saw earlier today, and managed to squeak out a 10th place finish, just sprinting in ahead of another rower there, the German rower. And yeah, so had a great race. We were supposed to be racing in the B final of the mixed double, but I've been struggling with a little nerve issues in my legs, so we decided to bow out. And that will give me time to recover, as well as gave her the breathing room to be able to perform in the solo.
Excellent. And well, I'm glad she had a good race. And now that we look at this and the solo, now you raced the solo earlier in the weekend. How was it when you look out at this 6K course?
I actually didn't race the solo this year. I decided not to, but I appreciate that I was out there and right in the lead the whole time.
Well, what's it like out there, though? Tell us from your perspective. I mean, you haven't raced the 6K course, but when you've raced the 4K course, what will be going through your mind now, this extra 2K that they've got to cover? Oh,
the extra 2K makes a huge difference, and a lot of these athletes have doubled up as well, or will be doubling up, so that's going to be on their mind. They will be fighting 100% right to the line no matter what, even if they're racing next. But just having that extra lactic acid already settled in their legs from earlier racing today, if they had it, that's going to make a big difference in the second leg of the course. That extra 2 kilometers does make a big difference.
Well, it looks like the leader is just starting to run away with it here. I mean, Chris, he's doubled up. You were just saying about doubling up. He's now racing again in short order. It's going to be tough for him to hold on to this silver medal when you've got somebody like Charles Cousins, who hasn't raced yet, trying to bear down and take that silver medal position from him as they come up towards turning point 6.
Yeah, in the single, you can see that they're quite spread out. They're almost like a parade at the front of the pack here, the breakaway group. Adrian is definitely class of the field here, and I don't think that's going to change anyway. But Chris seems to have the firepower. We've seen him in the past be an exceptional athlete. He had an amazing race in the double, and I bet he's just going on adrenaline here. He knows he is one of the fastest in this field. He knows that it's his to lose right now. He knows Charles is also coming for that silver position, so he's going to be holding on, and Charles is going to be fighting for it.
I think these are our medalists here, aren't they? There's a bit of a clear water gap back to Keelan Mannix, currently riding in 4th place.
Yeah, as they enter the chicane, it's really, really hard to come back from being behind. But at the same time, anything can happen. You can beat someone who's in front of you from behind by being relentless. And these athletes are relentless.
Perseverance all the way to the line is key, isn't it? But I mean, when you've got Miramon Quiroga out in front, he's just so great at turning that boat quickly. Chris Back seems to have a bit better boat speed now on the straight and is closing in.
Yes, he does seem to be pushing a little bit here. It would be really interesting if we had the boat speeds on the screen, but we don't. But we did see Chris seem to take a boat length in the last 10 strokes. But you also wonder, is Adrian Miramon Quiroga just sort of sitting on top, waiting for that push when he has that skill to ride the waves around the back turn?
Well, they'll be coming up shortly towards turning point 7. And Miramon Quiroga there for Ireland. Just 20 meters separating him from Chris Back and a potential silver medal.
Yeah, this is the battle that Chris wanted for the beach sprints and never got. He had an unfortunate, just a little under the weather, some food poisoning, I understand, the night before, so wasn't at his peak on this Monday morning for the weather day. So here he gets the chance to come after the champion and give a little something back from not being able to make it into that final round.
Yeah, that's right, isn't it? Because he was the world champion in the beach sprint last year in Saundersfoot, and he didn't quite manage to defend that title properly into the last 8 of the men's solo last weekend. So this is his opportunity to make amends.
This is his opportunity, and last year we saw how much of a competitor he was, but we also have to remember in Portugal, Chris won the initial time trial. So he's been in building towards this for the last few years, and under the coaching of Mark Oria, he's really honed the skills. And Adrian does have the experience and the pedigree on the water, in the waves, but Chris is right behind him, literally.
You couldn't take that corner any tighter than Adrian just did then. That was to perfection. And it's earned him at least another length on Chris at that point.
Exactly, and we've seen that around today. And it seems that the Spaniards are always amazing at their turns. They're just never to be underestimated. There's usually 2 or 3 in each of the finals. They just are classy rowers, and they know how to do it and make it look really good. And Adrian is also an exceptional beach sprinter. So that hairpin turn, he's trained that many, many times and can do it with his eyes closed. And we saw an example of that right there. Didn't lose any speed. Yeah,
you're right, because that's the tightest corner, the tightest turning point 7 in the whole 10-point course of our 6K race here. Chris Back then, I think, is looking good for silver. Charles Cousins, a quick peek over his shoulder just to see where they're going. 3 very different boats. We've got the Kangwa, we've got the Felipe, and then a Swift, all chasing each other down towards what is now the chicane, turning points 8 and 9. Just 170 meters between the 2 of them. So this is an opportunity for us to get another masterclass watching Adrian take these corners.
Exactly. And it's really, really good to watch this. I really wish that I was able to be out there racing with these guys. Unfortunately, this year for the men's solo, it's in the same group as the mixed double, so we wanted to have an opportunity at that podium in the double, which unfortunately we didn't get to. It would be too much for me personally to do the solo as well, but a lot of these athletes are doubling up like that, and they are able to perform. So it's very exceptional, a lot of athleticism. You can see that Adrian is pulling away, it looks a little bit. I'm sure Chris is really trying to fight because he knows if they can land at the beach the same, he might be able to outsprint him. I don't think anyone is faster on the beach than Chris.
Yeah, he's so fast. But he's got to close down this margin if he wants to stand a chance with it on the sand. Yeah, Adrian just looks so like he's out for a Sunday scull here, doesn't he?
He really does, and we do know, even as easy as Chris looks at it right now, his legs are crushed. He raced that double right to the line, literally. And we did see how it came down to the beach sprint. I thought for a second Adrian was on the wrong side of the buoy there, but he would not miss a buoy like that.
No, still the chicane to go, 170 meters up to turning point 8, and then we got 340 meters to turning point 10, and then 350 meters to turning point to the beach. So they're around turning point 8 now, and then it's 9 that's next. Charles Cousins trying to close in on silver, but I can't see these medal positions changing, and I can't see anybody else getting into the action now. It's an ocean of clear water back to 4th place.
Yeah, Adrian's walking away with this, really, he is. He seems to be saving it almost for the quad coming up.
Yeah, so he's racing in the quad next with... who's he got in the quad? Oh, we'll look forward to that. It's the next race on our lineup. There he is for a composite of Portmagee, Rosscarbery, Shandon, Clon, and Wicklow, where he's joined by Ronan Byrne, Tom Kelly, and Keelan Mannix. Keelan Mannix, who's currently 4th in this race at the moment. They'll be coxed by Miriam Sheehan, so they'll be one of the crews to watch in that A final. Look at this, the rolling waves making it a little bit tricky to keep that boat speed up as they make their way now towards turning point 10. And then the short run in 350 meters back in onto the beach. And you're going to be helping Joel back in onto the beach when he comes in, is that right?
Joel's actually got a few more people to help at the beach, so I bowed out of that responsibility, but I will be helping with the German quad, so I'm going to have to run after this race is over.
Gotcha. Well, that's good. I love the fact that all the athletes help each other out. It's what makes the sport so friendly, isn't it? So, Miramon Quiroga coming up to turning point 10. I think this race, a foregone conclusion, pretty much halfway down the back straight. I thought Chris might move up to contest him, but just through these turns, Quiroga's just so fast. And that boat speed has just been so consistent all the way around our 6K course.
Yeah, it really has. I know a lot of these athletes would have been hoping to stay with the top group, but just when you get that breakaway like that, it's very difficult to hold on if you don't have the ability to do that. It's really spectacular that Chris is out there having just completed that amazingly close race in the men's double. And we have to remember last week he was a world champion in the quad. Corey, his partner in the double, was a world champion in the quad. And again, today, world champions in the double. So it looks like Chris is going to be picking up another medal for this 2-week trip we're on right now.
It's amazing that, isn't it? 3 medals in 2 weekends. 2 at least so far for Miramon Quiroga, though, because he's got another shot in the men's quads coming up, as you say. So we'll see how he comes into his beach landing. A couple hundred meters left for him to go. And look, you can see he's caught a bit of a surge there. Yeah. Tricky to keep the boat straight, isn't it? You can see him arguing with it slightly.
It is, but if anyone's going to keep it straight coming into the beach, it's going to be Adrian.
And we saw that in the beach sprints as well. He was just so skilled at keeping the boat straight. When the stern was getting lifted, that would usually cause a less experienced athlete to have their boat spin perpendicular to the beach and sometimes capsize.
Yes. And we saw that in some of the other boats, even in this endurance landing. Some of the boats did go a little sideways. Some people jumped out a little bit early. A lot of the athletes here are not practiced at jumping out of the beaches, but in this field, we do have a lot of beach sprinters coming to the beach, so we'll see some good landings. And then some jelly legs. Some
jelly legs indeed. Adrian Miramon Quiroga, he can take his time getting out of the boat. He knows he's done it. There's those jelly legs. He's still got another race to go, which is the very next race. So he'll need to get some quick recovery in to make sure that he's ready for that quads race. What a performance. Adrian Miramon Quiroga, world champion in the men's solo for 2023. A super performance from the athlete representing Wicklow Rowing Club Ireland, retaining his world championship title.
What a performance.
Here's Chris back. He takes the silver, and Charles Cousins for Mumbles Amateur Rowing Club Great Britain comes in for the bronze.
It looks like Charles was able to gain some speed on Chris in the last bit, and that could have actually been to his advantage if Chris had a stumble or didn't get out of the boat properly, which could have happened with those legs being so tired. So it was a fight right to the end for both of those men.
Well, here's a recap of that A final of the men's solo. Fantastic race. Getting off the starting line, Adrian Miramon Quiroga, absolutely rapid start. And he just held it all the way down the course. We thought Chris Back might move through him down that long straight, down the back, 1,500 meters. This is Chris trying to take the lead, but just the superior boat speed from Wicklow Rowing Club's Adrian Miramon Quiroga. So quick around the corners. He held on to the lead from start to finish and started to pull away. That tussle for the medals being played out all the way around the chicanes in the second half of the course. Chris Back holding on to the silver medal, his 3rd medal of the weekend of the week, in fact, and then the bronze to Charles Cousins of the Mumbles Amateur Rowing Club. Here's Adrian Miramon Quiroga retaining his title as the World Rowing Coastal Champion in the men's solo. Cracking race that was in the A final of the solo. Next up then, we have the men's coxed quads to look forward to, but there are the unofficial results of that solo. Miramon Quiroga of Ireland's Wicklow Rowing Club taking the win, Chris Back silver, Charles Cousins the bronze, and then everybody gets a ranking behind them all the way down to 18th from that A final.
Quiroga!